Hey everybody, and welcome to Project Premium Harvest. My name is Matt. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the YieldMax Group B pairs. We're going to be discussing their declarations and distributions for March 28th, 2025. We're going to be talking about the total return if we invested at the inception price, but then we're also going to talk about if you invested at the absolute all-time high, what would your return look like? So we're going to look at all those different perspectives and numbers, and we're going to make a determination. Is it a good fund to invest in? But before I like to go into the spreadsheets, I like to be very transparent as an investor and a YouTuber. So for me, the way I do that is I show my account every time I make a video. So currently the account is at $109,662.16. It is down about $6,000 over this last week, I think, maybe even more. Let's see. Yep, it was at 18 and now it's at 109, but that's just the market ups and downs. April 2nd's come around. Trump's talking about a lot of tariffs, so the market doesn't like the uncertainty. So we're going to see how it plays out. And because of the uncertainty, I actually threw a put on the S&P 500. Hopefully it pays out. If it doesn't, whatever, we'll close out and try to break even on it. But now let's go to the spreadsheets. Okay, guys. So starting off with Nvidia here, this is one of my favorite YieldMax funds. In addition to Misty, the inception price was $20 a share back in June of 2023, and the all-time high for this fund is about $30.51 a share. The March 28th distribution was 78, almost 79 cents, and the current share price is down to $15.68 as compared to about a month ago. It was about $20, almost $21 a share. So it has been steadily going downwards, and I'm not necessarily too worried about it. If you guys have been watching my videos, I am very bullish on what Nvidia has to offer, right? I don't think the AI boom has really even started yet because there isn't even enough power to meet the demand of the hardware that AI needs to progress forward, if that makes sense, right? So that's why there's a lot of companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle, Google. They're all trying to make deals with nuclear reactor companies so that they can power these data centers because they're going to need so many chips to meet the demand of AI. Basically, it's the next industrial revolution, but it's the AI revolution. I definitely think Nvidia is going to be a massive player. Yes, their chips are the leader in the market. Sure, China can make a cheaper chip, but it's not better than Nvidia. And most people, they're usually going to want to buy American because it's relatively safer. Plus, they're going to buy the better product. And the better product right now is Nvidia. They do have the market leader, especially with this new Blackwell chip coming out. The fact that it's going down a little bit, I'm not necessarily too worried about it. I'm long-term Nvidia anyways. With that being said, let's go down to more of the details. The total premium since this fund has been incepted is about $28.70 a share. And the total number of payments this fund has paid out since its inception is 23. And if we look at that as an average distribution per payment, it's about $1.24 a share. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty and make a determination. Hey, is this fund even worth investing in? Some people like it, some people don't. And so we'll just take a look at the numbers because the numbers don't lie and the numbers are unbiased. So for the share price change in value since its inception is down 21.6%. But if we look at the total return, I'm not necessarily a big fan of total return, but it doesn't lie. Because if we throw in the distribution payments in addition to the share price, the total return since this fund has been incepted is 121.93%, which is by far better than I would think 90% of the YieldMax funds, especially for those investors that want to hold on to it and actually receive a dividend or distribution instead of having to like trade options and sell in and out of different funds here and there, right? And so now let's look at if we bought in at the all-time high of that $30.51, what that return would look like. So if we bought at that all-time high at that $31.51, we would be down negative 48.61%. But because the distribution and the premium was so high from Nvidia, that we would still be up 45.48%. And if you look at that over a, what is that? 2.5 year period. Let me do the math. Let me think about this for a second. So in about 19 months of investing to still get a 45% return of distribution payment, that is actually still pretty good. So you're almost making over, 22.5% per year, but that's cash that you can use to reinvest something else or use it to live off of. That's quite impressive. And if we look at the average share price, So it's kind of like more so for me to look at an opportunity to buy in. This stock has been averaging about $23.50, or this fund has been averaging about $23.58 a share. So ideally, anytime I would want to buy in this fund, it has to be below this threshold of $23.58. Cool. That was the Nvidia summary. Now let's go to the next one. It's Babo. When I was doing the analysis for Babo, it actually surprised me. And we're going to see why here in a minute. The inception price for Babo was $20 a share, and the all-time high this fund has ever gone to was $25.47. If you look at the most recent declaration that's coming up on March 28th, it's going to be about 76 cents. It's going to be 76 cents, and the share price is currently at $20.34. And this fund was incepted about a couple of months ago, back in September of 2024. And if you look at the total premium this fund has paid out since its inception in September 9th of 2024, it's been about $7.14 per share. If you look at that as a total number of distributions and payments, that's 8. And if you look at that as an average per payment, that's about 89 cents per payment. Now let's talk about the share price change in value and make a determination. Is this a good investment? So the share price change in value since this fund has been incepted is about 1.7%. So it's actually really good. It's a positive number. And now let's take a look at the distribution. And if you look at the total return, also throwing in the premium payments in addition to the current share price, we're up 37.4%. Wow, this is the perfect recipe for not losing money. Share price appreciation, and you're receiving a premium. This fund is actually surprised me. And do I consider investing into it? Just from the unbiased numbers, this would be a decent investment. However, I'm not really a big fan of Baba, like Alibaba. So I'm going to tend to avoid it. Is this a potential missed opportunity for me because I don't want to invest in a different market? Yes, I'm going to prefer American. Sorry. And the share price change in value, if we bought in at that all-time high, that $25.47, right, you would be down 20.14%. So it always depends on when you buy in the fund. And if we look at that as a total return, if we throw in the distributions along with that share price, you're only up 7.89%, but you are still up if you bought in at the absolute worst time. So is this investable? My answer is yes. And if you like Alibaba and you see the potential for it, go forth and invest. I'm not going to tell you not to, but going back to Nvidia, I would still invest in it. I am currently investing in it, and I'm going to continue investing into it in the future. Now let's look at dips. So dips is the inverse of what Nvidia does. So Nvidia does synthetic call options, while dips does synthetic put options. So it's basically thinking Nvidia is going to go down. So let's take a look if that return is reflecting and see if this is a good investment. For anyone that doesn't like Nvidia, we'll see if the numbers lie or they line up with what the thesis is for people that say Nvidia is not going where it should be. So for dips, the inception price was $20 a share, and the all-time high was $22.52. And if we look at the coming up declaration and distribution for March 28th, that's going to be about 59 cents a share. Now let's look at the share price. The share price is $12.43, so it has been significantly going down every single month. This fund was also incepted at the same time as Babo, and of that September 9th. And since this fund has been incepted, it has paid out $5.33 a share out of 8 payments. And then if we look at that as an average distribution, that's 66 cents a share. Now let's look at the share price change in value. So if we invested at inception with that $20 investment, we would be down 37.85%. And if we threw the distributions into that calculation, we are also still down negative 11.20%. So not a good number. That's the absolute best point you could buy in at, and you're losing money. Now let's look at the all-time high. So that all-time high was at $22.52 a share. And if you look at that, we are down negative 44.8%. And then if we also throw the distributions in there, it's down at negative 21.13%. All right. And if we look at the average share price, it is about $13.76 a share. So if you are interested in buying this, probably buy it below that number, but just from looking at these negative numbers, I would highly recommend against buying dips. I would prefer you guys to buy Nvidia, but I'm also not going to put words in your own mouth. Now let's move over to the next fund. FBY is one of those funds that always impresses me every time I take a look at it. So let's just dive into the numbers. FBY had an inception price of $20 a share, and the all-time high was $24.23 a share. The declaration payment that's going to be paid out for March 28th is going to be 55 cents, and the current share price is $16.84. This fund has been out since September 18th, 2023, so it's been out for quite some time, right? And if we look at the total premium since this fund has been incepted, it's about $14.18 a share. If you look at the total amount of distributions this fund has paid out, it's about 20 because it's a monthly payer. And if you look at that average distribution per payment, it's about 70 cents a share. So that's actually pretty good. Now let's look at the numbers that actually matter. So the share price change in value since inception is negative 15.8%, right? Not very good. But if we look at the total return, so we're basically taking that share price, throwing in that premium, it's actually 55.13%, which is really freaking good. So for about, a 2-year investment, less than 2-year investment, you're getting a 55.13% return. That's really good. Almost 25% a year. And it's not even a full year. But let's go to, if we invest at the all-time high, the share price change in value is negative 30.5%. And then if we look at that as a total return, if you invest at the absolute worst time, you would still be positive 28.05%, which is great. And if we look at the average share price, it's about $19.98 a share. So FBY always surprises me every time I look at it because it's always better than I think it is. I think Facebook, Meta, social media company, but then it's just producing money under YieldMax per view. Okay, now let's go over to GDXY. So for GDXY, the inception price was $20 a share, and the all-time high was also $20 a share. Since this fund has incepted, right, we're taking a look, it's only been going down, and more down. The distribution we're going to receive for the 28th is going to be 64 cents, and the current share price is $15.68. Looking at the total premium, this fund has paid out $5.47 with 10 distribution payments. We take that and put that into an average that's about 54 cents a share. And now let's look at the numbers that matter. The share price change in value since inception is negative 21.6%, and the total return is 5.76%. Now let's look at the share price change in value if we invest it at the all-time high. I mean, the numbers are going to be exactly the same, but let's put it this way. This fund was incepted in July 2024, so it's been what, 6, 7, 8, almost 9 months. For a 9-month investment, only getting 5.76%, I don't know if it's worth it. I don't think it is worth it. So therefore, should you invest in this fund? I'm going to say no. But if you have your own perspective, shooter's choice. Okay, now let's go over to JPMO. So JPMO inception price $20 a share, and the all-time high is $21.86. The March 28th declaration payment is going to be 37 cents, and the current share price, just checking today, is about $16.57. This fund has been paying out distribution since October of 2023. And let's look into the holistic statistics for this fund. The total premium for JPMO is $7.18 a share. And if you look at that number of distributions, it's 19. Of those 19 distributions, if we make that into an average distribution per payment, that's about 37 cents a share. Now let's look at the share price change in value. If we bought at inception and maintain this investment, we'd be negative 17.15% if we're just looking at the share price. But if we're taking into consideration the distribution paid out, we're actually up 18.78%. Now let's look at the worst case scenario of if we invest at the all-time high, what the numbers would look like. So that number would look like negative 24.2%, just taking the share price into consideration. And then if we throw that distribution in there, we're only positive 8.67%. So same thing with the other fund we're looking at. Is 8.67% a good enough investment for someone to almost invest, over a year and a half? I'm going to say no. I would avoid this. And you honestly probably can make more money running covered calls if you just owned 100 shares of this and just put the calls out of the money and just keep rinsing and repeat, and you wouldn't have to deal with NAV erosion. That's just my thoughts on JPMO. Let's move over to Morrow. So Morrow, it has incepted, this year, January 6th, 2025. The inception price was $50 a share, and the all-time high was $51.67. Let's look at the share price that it's currently at. It's at $16.57. This fund has got absolutely slaughtered. And just from the get-go and looking at those three things, I'm not investing in this fund. You should invest in this fund until there's a turnaround and there's a statistical history of them making money. Because this is a dumpster fire. Don't invest in it. But let's still go through our paces. For March 28th, we're going to get a $1.48 distribution. That's what makes it attractive. That's what YieldMax does, is they give massive premiums. And people think, oh, if I have 1,000 shares of this, I get $1,000+. But if the fund is volatile looking like this, don't invest into it. And looking at the number of distributions, there's only been 4 distributions since this fund has been incepted. But if you look at the average distribution, it's about $1.90 per share. Now let's look at the share price change in value since its inception. So at that $50 strike price, we are negative 66.86%. And then if we throw in the distribution payments in addition to the share price, we are negative 51.6%. And the all-time high numbers, because it was at that $51.67, are going to be a little bit worse than the inception price. So the share price is change in value is negative 67.93%, and the total return for Morrow is negative 53.16%. Hot garbage. And if you look at the average share price, it's only been out for 4 payments, and the average share price is $17.90 and incepted at 50. Oh my goodness, what a loss. Hopefully nobody has invested in this fund. All right. Moving on to MRNY or Moderna. Inception price was $20 a share, and the all-time high was $23.59. The distribution that we're going to get for March 28th is 18 cents a share, and the current share price, guys, look at this. Share price is $20 a share, and the current price is $3.07. What the hell is going on over here? Why doesn't YieldMax just kill this? But let's go through it. Let's go through the rest of this analysis. This fund has been incepted or has been paying distribution since March 13th, 2023. The total premium this fund has paid out is about $10.73, and there has been 17 payments. If you look at the average distribution, it's about 63 cents a share. But now let's look at the share price change in value since its inception. So if we take that $20 inception price, we are negative 84.65%. In what world is this investment ever going to be okay? And then once we throw in the distribution, what does it look like? Not as bad as 84%, but it's still negative 30.95%. 30.95%. What hot garbage? Get rid of this. YieldMax, what are you doing? Just admit, have some ownership that you guys messed up and this was a bad fund to create. Anywho, since this fund did have an all-time high that was higher than the inception price, is at $23.59, the share price change in value is actually worse. So it's negative 86.99%, almost 87%. And then if we throw in the distributions in addition to that share price, we are at negative 41.46%. Don't invest in this fund, period. I'll stop. And the average share price is $12.31 a share, but it's just from 20 all the way to 3. Oh, that is not a good feeling. All right. Lastly, guys, let's go over Palantir, or Planty, as some would say. The inception price was $50 a share, and the all-time high was $94.87. Crazy that this fund almost doubled, plus it plays a high distribution as it has. So let's dive into it. The March 28th declaration and distribution we're going to get is $5.33 a share. Wow, that is wild. That is massive. That is huge. Current share price is also around that $60.15 mark. And this fund has only had 5 or 6 distribution payments, but it has a total of $23.38. Oh man, this is crazy good. All right, and the average distribution is $3.80 a share. Wow, these numbers are wild. If we look at the share price change in value since its inception, it's up 20.3%. And then if we throw in the distributions, it's also up 67.07%. Now let's look if we messed up and we invested at that FOMO high mark of that $94.87. If you invested at that mark, you would be down negative 36.6%. And then if we throw in the distributions at that point as well, you're down negative 11.95%. And the last data point here is average share price, $64.44. Okay, let me go over to my Robinhood and give some final thoughts. Okay, guys, so here are my final thoughts for this video. Nvidia is the cornerstone of my investing portfolio and philosophy. They are a high producing, high income fund. And I definitely think that in the future, Nvidia is not going anywhere and Nvidia is not going anywhere. Therefore, I'm going to keep maintaining my investment in it. I'm not going to reinvest my shares. My current investment philosophy is I take the money from Nvidia to pay back the HELOC loan that I took out in June of 2024. Cool. And then I'm going to say some honorable mentions. Everything else that YieldMax had in this Group B pairs, FBY, and I also like Babo. Those are really good honorable mentions, and their data is convincing enough for me to invest in it. But I definitely want to observe the market a little bit more, especially now that the investing sentiment with like the current administration with tariffs, not saying it's a bad thing, not saying it's a good thing. We are going to find out what's going to happen. And I don't necessarily think it's a good time to put more money into the market, because if it goes down, there's going to be more things on discount that we can potentially scoop up. And I think right now we're kind of at a crossroad of either going up or either going down. So I think we have to be patient to figure out which direction the market's going to go. But FBY and Babo, they definitely have an argument to be made for me to buy and add to my account. Palantir or Planty or whatever you want to call it, my God, that fund has been crazy outperforming. But my concern with Palantir is right now, I think it's a lot of hype. It's kind of like the Tesla stock. Sometimes it goes shooting up, but there really isn't enough financials to support that boom. Don't get me wrong, they're on the right trajectory, but I don't think they're worth that amount just yet. They're still making their way there. But yeah, guys, those are kind of my final thoughts. All the other funds in this group, YieldMax Group B pair, I am not a fan of. Anything that was negative share price, and once you add in the premium and it's still negative, not a fan. That wraps up the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something useful out of this data that I collected for you guys. But yeah, that's it. Matt out. I'll see you in the next one.